Before 2010, Chelsea were known to be a solid defensive team that could hold their own, but they were not really known for flamboyancy in attack. But we all know that the era of Carlo Ancelotti at Chelsea has to be one of the most exciting experiences and an era of free-flowing attacking football, the best that we've ever seen at Stamford Bridge for over a decade. So what was Don Carlo's plan at Stamford Bridge? How did he transform a defensive side to a flamboyant attacking team that ended up scoring 7 or more goals in more than one game in the Premier League? They also managed to destroy all the other top teams, so they had victories over Arsenal, Manchester United and Liverpool in both home and away games. So in this video, we'll look at Carlo Ancelotti's tactical evolution at Chelsea, and then of course we'll go on to test out the tactic with some of the elite teams that he went on to manage in his illustrious career. Before we understand what Carlo Ancelotti did with Chelsea in 2010, we need to go back a few years to his time at Parma. When Carlo Ancelotti was in charge of Parma, he struggled a lot with changing his tactic to a different one. He had this rigidity problem. So in that Parma squad was Gianfranco Zola. So Carlo Ancelotti played Gianfranco Zola as a winger in a 4-4-2 tactic, and this led to Zola becoming uncomfortable at the club and much later joining Chelsea.
With Zola, lovely footwork from him. He dances through!
Well, you know the rest of that story. So when Carlo Ancelotti joined Chelsea, he faced a similar experience. He started with a diamond 4-4-2, with Deco as the defensive midfielder and Frank Lampard as the central attacking midfielder. This didn't really work out in the league, and when Deco also played in the number 10 role as the attacking midfielder, he played Michael Essien in the defensive midfield, and to some extent it didn't really work out. And also Florian Malouda wasn't getting enough game time in the team. Their tactics soon lost steam, and Carlo Ancelotti faced head on with the similar situation that he had with Zola at Parma. Rather than stick to his guns and force his 4-4-2 diamond system to work, he decided to adjust and become more flexible with his tactics. This led to the invention of a Chelsea side that the Premier League has never seen before. What Carlo Ancelotti went on to do was to play Florian Malouda as the left winger and Nicolas Anelka as the right winger, and then Didier Drogba of course led the line in attack. That formed a 4-3-3 system that kind of like was a 4-3-2-1 system. I'll show you how it works in Football Manager really, and we'll also look at the results that this tactic went on to have in Football Manager. So but first let's just look at the tactic breakdown in the game. So instead of the diamond, Carlo Ancelotti decided to opt for a 4-3-3 system, and in this system he had two wide players in Florian Malouda and Nicolas Anelka. Florian Malouda played as a winger, I'm going to dare I say it, winger on attack duty, and Nicolas Anelka of course played on the right hand side as a winger on attack. But these wingers did go on to have internal player instructions. They also had the Drogba up front, which is going to be the complete forward on attack. The back four had Ashley Cole as the left back, and Ashley Cole was a lot more adventurous than Branislav Ivanovic at right back. So Ashley Cole, being the fullback that he was playing as a fullback on attack duty. The central defenders stayed as central defenders on defend duty, conventional central defenders, because back at 2010 I don't really know how many ball playing defenders that we had. But at right back, fullback on support duty, Branislav Ivanovic had this aggressive tendency to him, so he was able to mark tighter and of course tackle harder. The goalkeeper was a standard goalkeeper on defend duties. Sweeper keepers weren't really a thing back then for English clubs. And in central midfield, the Trinity, of course. You can go for a central midfielder on support duty in this role, but then I opted for a box-to-box. I think that's actually the best role for Michael Ballack. He was the one in this role. He was able to defend. He was able to get into the edge of the box and just, hit long shots from in there. So kind of like a box-to-box / central midfield role on support. And of course, the defensive midfielder is a ball-winning midfielder on defend in Michael Essien, kind of replicating that Michael Lele role. So Michael Essien was in here, stopped the attacks and played to a more creative player in midfield, or even hoofed the ball along to other players in attack. And of course, the main pivotal role as to how Chelsea's legendary tactic went on to work was our central midfielder in Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard was operating as a central midfielder on attack duty, and he had that ability to get into the box, and you can see it in here, readily make those surging final third runs into the box and try to finish off chances. So that's what the central midfield and attack role was for. The team instructions were not that complicated. If you look at the way Chelsea played out of possession, mid block and standard defensive line, there wasn't much high pressing or high defensive line in the way their system was built, but they did allow some pressing, so that's good to see. They were not preventing shot goalkeeping. Most of these instructions weren't really a thing back then, and because of the way Carlo Ancelotti's tactic is set up, you're not really forcing too many instructions. So if if you look at the way the team is set up in transition, counter-attacking was quite paramount for the way Chelsea went on to play. They didn't really waste much time in defense to try and, play fancy passing football. They were obviously going to hit you and strike to score goals. Distributing the ball quickly did help the goalkeeper actually do that. And then in possession, it gets really, really simple. The team was able to run at the opposition's defense because the intensity or the intention was actually going to the opposition's third and try to score goals. They weren't really passing the ball for passing sake. They were a lot more expressive in the way they play. Players were allowed to move around a lot. Players were allowed to change positions and have a lot of rotations. They weren't really playing out from the back excessively. It wasn't a forced instruction. Passing to space was the only other instruction that I can think of. And then another important instruction was their attacking width. They kind of just played narrow to try and retain that mid-closeness between themselves. So fairly narrow attacking width was what was important here. And you'd notice that the inside forwards, or what I'm going to call wingers that are like fake inside forwards back then, Florent Malouda is obviously going to cut inside and try to cause havoc in the box, even though he was still going to cross the ball and try to, play passes into the box for Frank Lampard to actually score. Cutting inside and roving from position was paramount. And of course, Nicolas Anelka as well. He's not exactly acting like an inside forward, but he's still going to come from wide areas, get into the box and try to finish off chances. He's also cutting inside and of course roving from positions. Didier Drogba was basically able to do whatever he wanted. You don't really need to force anything there. And the final instruction is the team mentality being attacking. Positive, like I mentioned before in previous Football Manager videos. If you haven't already followed the channel, you can subscribe now so you can get notified for more videos. But positive mentality on Football Manager is a bit possession based, and that's not what Carlo Ancelotti was playing. It was a lot of attacking into their gameplay. So this is basically how the tactic was set up. But don't worry, in case I missed anything, I'm going to attach a link in the description so you can see the complete tactic as it is. So without wasting any more time, let's see how the teams actually turned out with this tactic. We'll start off with Parma, where the history actually begins, and Parma are currently sitting first in the Serie B, so they're promoted. I think they're expected to get promoted, and they have a goal difference of 48. If you look at the competition start, they were knocked out from the Italian Cup by, I don't know which team is this, Cremonese. Looking at the team stats so far, most points per game, Parma had 2.03 points per game, and then they had the highest amount of goals in 91. They also had the fewest shots against because they spent a lot more time attacking the other teams rather than giving them opportunities to actually come and score against them. Most shots, they're in there as well. Possession, not really, because the tactic is not a possession-based tactic, it's an attacking tactic. Nobody has time for possession in this one. And you can see that they have the most dribbles in 619. Chelsea did go on to score 7-0 on 2 occasions, but let's look at what Parma did. Parma actually beat Cittadella by 6-0 and Venezia by 6-1. And I think those are the main. Okay, there's also another 6-2 victory over Modena in here, and that are one of the heavy victories that they went on to have. There's another one against Pisa, 5-1. I think Pisa came second in the league. Wow, so they actually beat the team that came second by 5-1. After Parma, we go on to AC Milan in the Serie A, and looking at Milan, I'm not sure they were predicted to win the league. Okay, they were predicted to finish in second place, which is almost like winning the league, really. They lost 5 times in the league, but they had a goal difference of 81, which is ridiculous, really. Looking at the amount of goals that they had to score a lot of goals to have 81 goal difference, right? 112 goals in the league, and they had the most points with 2.38. That's a lot higher than Parma. They had the most shots as well with 612, most dribbles, and you'd notice in possession that they're not quite there. So like I mentioned, it's not a possession-based tactic, it's an attacking tactic, and goals is the main agenda here. They had they conceded 31 goals, which kind of explains why they had 80-something goal difference. If they conceded less, it would probably be a lot higher goal difference. They were also runner-up in the Italian Cup. I wonder who they met in the final. AS Roma. They lost 1-0 to Roma in the final, and they didn't really do well in other competitions. And I think that's the same with what Carlo Ancelotti experienced at Chelsea. They didn't really do well in the Champions League as well as they did in the league. Our next trip takes us to Chelsea, where Carlo Ancelotti managed next. And to be honest, I think my games update kind of took Chelsea's recent form really seriously. So they went on to lose 13 times using this tactic. And Everton, as well as the other teams, they didn't really perform well with the tactics as I thought that they would. But let's look at the team stats in detail to see whether we can pick anything from it. Most goals, they are actually in 5th place, and Everton are in 8th. Chelsea went on to score 71 goals. Liverpool are the top dogs in this category. So not much good results from Chelsea in the Premier League or even Everton. PSG is the next team that Carlo Ancelotti went on to manage, and if you look at their recent game, they have one coming up against Olympique Lyonnais, but they also went on to beat Metz by 5-0 in the previous game. And looking at the league table so far, they are currently the team that are going to win the league eventually, but they have a goal difference of 78, and they've scored 103 goals so far, conceding only 25. Team stats wise, they're going to dominate everything bar possession, and then they have 2.53 points per game. Looking at the amount of goals, like we already saw, 103. They had the most clean sheets as well with 15. Bayern Munich are next on the list as we're looking at the teams that Carlo Ancelotti went on to manage. Unlike in real life, Bayern actually went on to win the league with 90 points, 10 more than the team that actually came in second place. And then looking at their stats, the most goals was Bayern Munich with 97, and then the fewest shots. Leipzig were quite close, but Bayern dominated that as well in 231 shots. Against, look at the most points per game. I think they have the highest on the list in 2.65. That is almost 3 points per game. So they probably won almost every game. Were they even able? Okay, they only lost twice in the league to VSB Stuttgart and RB Leipzig. They also struggled in the Champions League just like we saw, and of course the DFB Pokal they lost in the quarterfinal to Borussia Dortmund. So that is the recreation of Carlo Ancelotti's tactic from 2010 with Chelsea. Of course, testing with other teams that were not built like Chelsea's team is probably quite different and also very tricky, but it's a good test to actually have Carlo Ancelotti's tactic from 2010 in Football Manager 2024, and that's the way the tactic is built. I'm going to attach a link in the description so you can see the normal tactic as it is here with all the instructions selected the way they're supposed to be. For more Football Manager videos like this, do also hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when those videos do come out. Or you can go ahead and check the channel for other tactic videos like this. Well, PSG are the one team that actually went on to score 8 and 7 in the league, so that's good. They scored 7 twice, so PSG are the one team that actually replicated Chelsea's success in 2010 in real life. It's the French league, so that's actually good to see. If you're interested in learning how to apply opposition instructions from the Data Hub, you can check out this next video, and I'll see you in the next video.